Y-O-C-K a time or two. So just listen to this little tip I give to Y-O-U. So L-E-A-V, the beer and whiskey to the scrubs. Just take the road up high and leave them be yellow doves. 'Cause from my POV it seems so C-L-E-A-R. That drink will take you for a ride, but it won't take you far. Oh boy. Let's do that. Okay, folks. It's happening. It's time. It's time to ask me anything. We are getting rolling here with another weekly edition of Ask Me Anything, and today we're broadcasting out to the whole wide world. And usually we just do this weekly for our members. This is a little thing we do once a week here live. Get a little banjo discussion going, get your burning banjo questions answered. Occasionally we do this out to the whole wide YouTube world, so that's what we're doing today. Hello, YouTube folks, and we didn't give you any notice, but we did unleash this into the world, so some of you will just see this and maybe jump on and maybe get some of your banjo questions answered as well. Otherwise, we have our regular members, I'm sure, showing up here in the chat, and then all of our new folks and all of our silent folks out there lurking and watching as well. Feel free to hit that little chat button if you're on the YouTube site, or if you're inside the members area, there are chat options for you. So YouTube has its own chat function, and then if you're watching from the website, then there's a little chat button down there on the lower right hand side of your screen. Speaking of, our Master of Communication, Miss Kelly, is going to be taking care of chatting with you. How you doing, Kel?
I'm doing great.
All right.
Took me a minute to find my unmute button, but happy to be here this morning.
It happens. Me too. And I just lit my candles. I noticed they're not in the frame, but...
I can see them.
Let's bring them in. Bring them in. I was kind of feeling it today. Oh, yeah, they're still not quite there.
There, I can see them. We can see them.
Okay. I see one.
I mean, we can see the tops of them. Yeah. I have a candle lit in my little space as well. It's lovely.
It is lovely, and I've had these sitting here, my coveted beeswax candles that I am afraid to burn all the time because I want them to stick around. But, you know, it's kind of like having a fancy instrument and not actually playing it. What's the point, right? So today is Banjo by Candlelight edition. It's a candlelight edition of Ask Me Anything. And I'm going to ask you, Kel, how you doing, and how are the folks doing out there? Have you heard from anybody?
Well, we're hearing from some folks. I'm doing well. It's sunny and 15 degrees Fahrenheit here. So we're supposed to get up to about 22, but the sun makes a big difference. So we're we're dealing with our cold weather. Looks like it's
Mhm.
about 30s up in the Pacific Northwest. A little foggy on Vashon Island. 32 in Albany. But we do have some folks who are celebrating that today, or I guess you could say tonight, is Burns Night. Robert Burns, of course, this is celebrated in the UK, but also all across. We've got a big celebration that happens in St. Louis here as well. Tony's reminding us that Robert Burns contributed to Scottish culture and is best known for Old Lang Syne, which we sing when the new year comes in. So both Tony and Beebs are reminding us all to eat our haggis today. And Beebs is also letting us know that I can't believe we don't know this about Beebs at this point. This is amazing. Beebs says, I used to play the bagpipes and studied Gaelic in grad school. And then he says, now I just sip scotch. How did we not know that Beebs ever had an experience with bagpipes? I'm
Mhm.
pretty excited about this.
Yeah, I think we did talk about the bagpipe chanter one day in one of
Right, but
these
did Beebs
sessions.
say, "Oh, by the way, I played the bagpipes"?
No,
If I just, I don't think he
no.
did.
What we know is Beebs contains multitudes. That much we
Exactly.
know. We have a university here in town, a very prominent university, Washington University, founded by the father of T.S. Eliot. I'm pretty sure. Fun little tidbit. Um, Washington University here in town has a statue of Robert Burns on campus, and is this the time of year where usually a tutu appears on the statue?
Ooh, maybe.
I think so. I remember in the past seeing every once in a while noticing that that statue had a tutu on it and thinking somebody was having a little fun, which they were, but I think it may have to do with Robert Burns Day. That's as much as I can tell you. But something to look up. Tutus on statues.
I agree. You want me to do that? Like, is this something we're doing right
I just
now,
wanted
or?
some sort of response.
Okay.
Uh, but those of you who don't know and haven't figured it out yet, we're going to talk about banjos. We're going to answer some questions too if anybody's got any questions. Um, in lieu of questions rolling in, I will just start giving you an impromptu exercise or lecture or combination thereof. Today, if we're lagging on input from viewers, I'll probably pick up kind of where I left off in last week's weekly lesson. That's another thing that the members know what I'm talking about. If you're just out there on YouTube, you're not a Play Better Banjo member. We have a weekly lesson every week. There's a new lesson added to all the materials as well as this here live session. So I might pick up where that left off and do some more analysis of chord progressions, which is where we are in that our recent lesson series, which is music theory for the banjo. But I'm curious as to see if anything is rolling in. I need to do one final thing before I can conclusively say that I don't have questions on my end because I need to peek into my email, make sure I didn't miss any. And I don't believe I did. Alrighty.
I don't have any questions on my end at this point, so yeah.
Okay, so what we'll try to do is try to remember to. I'll try to remember to come up for air every once in a while here and give you a reminder that you can submit any banjo questions you have, anything just even tangentially banjo related. We can get a discussion going here for sure, and I can try to answer any questions you have. But in the interim, I will, like I said, I'll pick up where the lessons left off last week, last Wednesday, and do a little chord progression analysis. So I'm going to exile Miss Kelly into the Great Void. Nope, I featured her instead. Say goodbye to the people. Okay, now it's just. I think we're alone now, so now I will run you through some of this stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get on YouTube, believe it or not. So it'll be, as the kids say, it'll be a meta scenario here. Because while we're doing this live stream on YouTube, I'm going to access YouTube and just grab some random songs, fairly random songs, and analyze the chord progression and see if I can relate to you how this chord progression relates to all the things we've been talking about as of late inside the music theory for 5-string banjo stuff. So a great thing here is if you don't have a big burning question, if you don't feel like doing heavy interaction while we're on this live session, you can just let me know a song. Just throw out, let Kelly know, and she'll let me know. So just chat us and let us know if there's a song that you're curious about. So if there's a song you play or a song you're interested in playing, any song on your mind and you're curious how it might be able to be analyzed through the lens of what we've learned so far in the Play Better Banjo studies of music theory on the 5-string banjo, then let me know. Send your songs our way. In the meantime, I'm just going to jump on the old YouTube, and we'll leave our everybody's favorite YouTube channel, Play Better Banjo. We will venture away from there, and we'll search some songs. In order, since I don't yet have a volunteer from the audience, I am going to pull Kelly back in here for a sec. Cal, I'm going to see if you can help me pick a song. When I did this in the lesson last week, I did my best just to grab some lists online so it was clear that I wasn't, I wasn't premeditating exactly what I wanted to pick, so it would be kind of a more organic experience. Do you have any songs on your mind right now that you'd like me to analyze, progression-wise?
Oh my.
What was the song any of us have had stuck in our head lately?
I was thinking about Bob Dylan this morning. Does that help?
That narrows it down to like a couple thousand, so let's try that. Okay, we'll go with that. We'll find a Bob Dylan song. If you think of a specific one pops to mind, let me know. And otherwise, I'll go back here to my YouTube. We'll type in Bob Dylan song. Oh, and you know what? To make this easier, I should just not even do this on YouTube. I should just be out there on the wide web. And we'll do this. That way I can get a quick visual for you of the actual chord progression. We'll let the internet do most of the work. Bob Dylan song. Here's Mr. Tambourine Man popped up on YouTube, so I'll just go with that. Bob Dylan, Mr. Tambourine Man, chords. Let's see what the internet says the chords for Mr. Tambourine Man are. Hey folks, disclaimer, or maybe just a pro tip. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. That also that goes for music as well as everything else you've been looking at out there. Actually the most optimized results that you'll get for searching for chords for songs is usually going to be something like we're seeing here. I'll just give you that close up there. Something like ultimateguitar.com or similar. There are other pages that do the same kind of thing as Ultimate Guitar. This is all user submitted transcriptions and tabs, so make sure you understand that this is user submitted. These are fellow enthusiasts of a broad range of expertise submitting their interpretations of chord progressions and ways to play songs and all that. So for one, there's a lot of different ways to interpret some of the stuff. Two, a lot of it's just plain wrong. So be aware that the stuff you find online is not always going to be the right information, but at least it'll be some information, and you can work from there. Especially chord progressions, and especially on places like ultimateguitar.com. No offense, ultimateguitar.com. like I said, it's user submitted, so it's just, it is of the people, so the people ain't always right. Here it looks like we have Mr. Tambourine Man. We've got 3 chords on this one. So here's what I would do. First I'd try to figure out what key it's in. Here's another pro tip for you if you're trying to analyze the chord progression of a song. Don't fall for the trap of just looking at the first chord in the song and deciding that that's the key that it's living in. So this one's starting on a G/B. We'll talk about that in a sec. It's more likely, you're more likely to figure out the key of your song by looking where any of the major musical ideas end. So like the end of a verse, the end of a chorus, the end of the whole song especially. If you have that information on whatever you're referencing, then that's going to be a much better bet than looking at the first chord of the song and thinking, oh, it's in the key of, fill in the blank. This one actually looks a little confusing. The chords make me think it's in the key of D, though. So that's another thing is I'm looking here at the chord charts on top. I have a D, a type of a G chord, an A, and an E minor. So if you're familiar with your 1, 4, and 5 chords, which you should be, D, G, and A are the 1, 4, and 5 chords of the key of D. So we can safely say this is in the key of D. Then we can go on to analyze that minor chord at the end. And again, if any of you are confused right now with the fraction looking chord G/B, just ignore that B. If you checked out last week's lesson in the members area, you'll know all about what's happening there with those slashes. Just ignore that B for now. Just consider that a G chord. It is really what it is. So we have a D, G, and an A. So we have our 1, 4, and our 5 in the key of D. What's an E minor? How does that fit in to our key of D? I'll give you a second to think about that, and then I will lay it on you. E minor is simply the 2 chord in the key of D, and the fact that it's minor means that it is diatonically harmonized. Fancy words that if you were in the last couple of weeks of our music theory course. So that just fits. If you look at these 4 chords, they fit perfectly into a diatonic harmonization of the key of D. We have our 1 chord, our 4 chord, our 5 chord, and then our 2 minor chord. So you could just say the 2 chord because if you're just going to speak in shorthand, you could default to the diatonically correct harmonization of the 2 chord, which is an E minor. Of course, music doesn't always follow its own little proper etiquette. So all the time you might have a 2 chord or any chord, any degree chord in your progression. It might not be diatonic. So your 2 chord's not always going to be minor. It might be a major or a dominant 7th, something like that. But here we have a very straight, very clean representation of the key of D. There are no surprises here. The only thing that might surprise you is our weird fraction chord there, and that is just a G chord. When you see a slash, the letter beneath the slash, if it's a fraction, I think that's the denominator down below. That is just telling you what note you should be playing in the base of your chord. But oftentimes, most of the time, that note will just be a pre-existing note within your chord. It's just kind of giving you an idea of what voicing you should play for that chord. When in doubt, though, just ignore the slash, ignore what's behind it, and just play that first chord. Is that your numerator on top? I need a basic math lesson, clearly. Play the numerator, I'll say that, and hopefully I'm speaking the truth. So there's an interpretation. Now, I can play it. That's not really the point here. I really want to analyze these and help you take all this information we've been talking about and to just start applying it to songs out there so you can see that this is pertinent information, that it can help you. So now if I do go ahead and play this, should be easy to think about. I'm looking at the chord progression there, and I see it's starting on a G. So it's starting on a 4 chord, going to a 5 chord, coming back home to the 1 chord. Then it's going back to the 4 chord, back home to the 1 chord. Pretty standard movements. Hey, hey, Mr. Tambourine, song for me. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. I'm not sleepy and there is no place I'm going to. Hey, Mr. Tambourine Man, play a song for me. In the jingle jangle morning I'll come following you. All right, there's my very, very bad rendition of Mr. Tambourine Man in the key of D. Again, the purpose here isn't to play it right now. I just want to analyze it. So I'm going to look for some more, and I'm going to keep checking my monitor to see if Cowbell has any suggestions. So suggestions from the audience. Volunteers from the audience. Throw us some songs you'd like me to analyze, and I will give you an idea of how the chord progression breaks down and whether it relates to any of the subjects or any of the lessons we've been learning inside the music theory course, and then also just in general if it relates to our pillar progressions as well.
Kirby's got one.
All right. Boo-hoo.
Kirby's suggesting Hippie on the Highway by Tom Pacheco, which is
right.
Pacheco.
Okay. Now, we might end up having to figure out these chords on our own, but that's fine. Unless the song is out there somewhere. Hippie on the Highway. Tom
Yep.
Pacheco, kind of as it sounds.
Pacheco.
Pacheco.
Yep.
And let's go here. And I know you can't see what I'm looking at right now, but you don't need to yet. Okay, I see that we do have some lyrics and chords. Thank you, Kirby. Hippie on the Highway. No shortage of those, especially for you West Coasters out there. Let's see. This looks like I got duped into there. That's the other thing about a lot of these sites that are optimized for your search. They often don't actually give you what they're claiming they're going to give you. They're just kind of automatically grabbing your info and returning a bunch of nothing. So, because that one acted like it was going to have the lyrics and chords, and it did not. So maybe we'll just listen to it. Oh wait, here I see some folks have created. No, that's Life is a Highway. Let's see if any of these are all Life is a Highway. All right. Well, let's go to the old YouTube, see what we come up with. okay, so I missed a few of the chords in there, but for the most part, we're once again in the key of D with this here song. And I heard a couple little fours and a couple little fives in there. So once again, we're looking at D, G, and A. So that's pretty straightforward, easy to analyze and make sense of. So now, obviously, you're not all going to be able to just listen to a song and really quickly just kind of find the key and start grabbing the chords. But that's something you want to work towards through experimentation and just repetition. You'll get a little better and a little better. Your ear will get a little better at hearing these things, but you're going to have to do some trial and error, a lot of it. Sometimes it's an emphasis on error, but trial and error is a good way to get there. And then at the same time that you're just kind of hacking away and listening and trying to find it on your instrument, using your ear to guide you, you can also use the old noggin to guide you. So for instance, what I did there, I was listening, and then all of a sudden I heard, I was just kind of poking around on my banjo looking for I found this note here, and I thought, oh, okay, that sounds like it's either the chord he's playing or it's a note of the chord. So then I went ahead and guessed that it was a G chord, which includes that note that I found. So it was a D note there on the 3rd fret, 2nd string. And then I played that G chord. It did not match what he was playing. So then I thought, well, it's probably a D chord then. And it was. I adjusted. So I just used that little note to figure out what my first chord was. So I'm going to back up a few steps here and just kind of give you a few tips while we're here on trying to grab stuff by ear. It's a good place to start. I'm just listening to the general harmony of the song and just start poking around on the banjo until I found a note that seemed pretty prominent and seems to match up with what feels like the root chord. So anytime you feel the song either just hanging on a chord for a long time or just when you hear it resolving to a chord, again, when you hear a major musical idea like a big phrase or especially a verse or a chorus, you hear it wrap up and kind of settle, resolve to a chord. It's a good time to try to start hunting for what that chord might be. See, I like that. So that note sounds really good against the chord he's playing there, so that's when I start going, maybe it's a G, and then I hear it against his chord and go, nope, that D note must be a D. So I'm using a little bit of my ear, a little trial and error. Again, this is pretty easy for me at this point with a song like this, but that's the process. And then, don't discount all this knowledge I'm trying to get you to integrate into your old noggin as well. So, I found that D note, and I still felt like, oh, this is probably a G chord. Why? Because my brain got in there and said, this feels like a G for some reason. I bet it's a D note, but I bet it's just because your D is the 5 of your G chord, right? So go ahead and try that G. Turns out I was wrong. Then my ear had to tell me that. Then I went back to the noggin and said, okay, well, let me just try D as the root note. And that sounded great. Okay, anyway, I'm not going to overly analyze each individual, I'm not going to grid out this song for you, but I'll kind of try to walk you through what I found, and then we'll analyze it one final time. And when it gets to that little kind of bridge thing or that little refrain at the end of the verse, I'll try to figure out, it sounds like there might be a chord or two in there that is not strict 1, 4, 5 in the key of D. Might be a minor chord or something in there. So it's just a D chord here, or a 1 chord. Just kind of holding on the 1 chord. Quick one. So just kind of holds the 1 chord and does a little quick turnaround. So a lot like an old time song. You know, think of like the B part of Old Joe Clark or Cripple Creek or something. You're just kind of holding the one chord, holding the one chord. Let's do a quick 5-1 to turn around. That's pretty much what's happening. Little 5-1 to kind of wrap up that long one chord expression. There's a little, if you wanted to get, you know, if you wanted to do this one right, you would also figure out there's a little instrumental stabs going on there. Let's listen to that. Couldn't be young. My guess would be 4-1, 4-1. So that's what's happening there. If you want to analyze, if you want to catch that, those little instrumental stabs there. So we got a bunch of one chord, a bunch of D, and then at the end it kind of does a little A, D. So 1-5-1. The most common chord cadence in Western music there. Just 5-2-1. In our experience, it's usually a lot of 1, you know, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Wrap up with a 5-1. We do a little 4-1, 4-1, 4-1 is our instrumental stab. Then I think it goes back to same old thing, a one chord. That would be a 5-1, but sounds like he just kind of took a break there instead of playing the 5 chord. There's a few other spots in there I'd have to listen really closely where you could kind of interpret it. You could probably throw a 4 chord in there earlier, but anyway, 1, 4s, and 5s, all we're dealing with. And then right here, I'm going to see if there's any other, any divergence from the 1, 4, 5. That sounds like it might be something. That sounded like it might have been an interesting chord, something more interesting than our 1, 4, and 5, but that's just your 4 chord. There's your 1. And there's none to replace. Then it sounds like it gets kind of interesting. This could be pertinent to what we've been talking about lately, so I'm going to back up. There's none to replace it when he goes. All right. Thank you, Kirby. You made this relevant. There's a cool little thing that happens right there on this part of the chord progression. I don't know how well you can hear it on your recording. I'm just playing it through my speakers into the mic, but you can see where you can listen to this on your own. Hippie on the highway. Right there, you hear this little movement. You hear a boom, 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 boom. You hear this like 4-step movement all of a sudden, and I'll play it for you again. I think it starts about right here. He's a true free soul. It's got to be right here. And there's none to replace it when he goes. You can hear. Hopefully, you can hear if you listen to this on your own system. You clearly hear 4 chords. Maybe some of them are repeat chords, but you hear 4 expressions of chord. Now, what my guess is, what I'm hearing there, because you can hear it kind of moving incrementally. A lot of times when you hear that movement and it sounds like you're not making any big giant jumps harmonically, my guess is it's probably just walking up a diatonic harmonization. So we get to go back to this diatonic harmonization that we've been talking about recently. And, you know, even though that's just a fancy way of referring to it, we'll see that we have some application here. So my guess would be, this is total guess, maybe it just goes 1, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4. Let's see where it ends first, actually. Let's see. And there's none to replace it. It ends on the 5. Yeah, so that's exactly what happens. It goes to the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5. So this is a great example of, something other than just your 1, 4, 5 occurring. So, listen again. And there's none to replace it when he goes. That's pretty cool. We talk about John Hartford a lot here on Play Better Banjo Land. Kelly and I like to bring up John Hartford a lot just because he's kind of a wealth of repertoire and also philosophy. He was a avid student, lifelong learner, and he loved to kind of philosophize and share his knowledge of music. And he had a lot of great little methods and ways of remembering things. Anyway, this reminds me of something you hear in a lot of Hartford songs. If you're a fan of John Hartford, or you like that kind of songwriting, you hear these kind of step by step progressions that are kind of building slowly and very incrementally. You'll hear it in songs like "Way Up on the Hill," where they do the boogie, a Hartford song. Anyhow, that's pretty cool. So what we had there is 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's just straight diatonic. So I'm telling you that so you don't have to wonder, is it a 2 major or is it a 2 dominant? No, it's straight diatonic. So it's 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major. So E minor, F sharp minor, G major, A. Pretty cool. That stuff's kind of fun. When I first discovered the idea of kind of harmonizing an entire major scale into chords and doing what we've been doing recently together, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, etc. I found for a little while, every time I wrote a song, I'd try to get something like that, some element like that thrown in there. It's best used judiciously, as a surprise and not a default. But anyway, hopefully that made a little sense to you. You know what I'll do, since I'm just kind of shouting these out to you. Let's see. I might even have something already mapped out. Let's pull up some of these madman scribbles, and then let's deconstruct and reconstruct. In case you're kind of grasping this, but not quite there, this could be helpful. Okay, don't forget, I'm going to pop in here and just remind you, don't forget, we're here to answer questions live too, or just take more suggestions on songs that you'd like me to analyze, whose chord progressions you'd like me to analyze, give you a little insight into. In the meantime, I'll give you a little visual of what I just walked you through there. In the key of D, based on the D major scale, which, if we go through our major scale construction process, is going to end up looking like that. Our 1 chord's always a major. Our 2 chord, when I say always, I mean when we're diatonically harmonized. So there I just marked out the diatonic harmony types of the 2, 3, 4, and 5 of your key. It's going to be minor, minor, major, major. So in this case, we're going to have an E minor, an F sharp minor, a G major, and an A major. And that's how I was able to find those chords pretty easily. I already kind of, in my head, I thought it was going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. I thought it was going to be D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G major. But once I listened to it, I realized I was kind of a increment off, right? He's a true free soul. Let's listen to a little more Tom here. These yuppies everywhere I see, in designer clothes, driving Mercedes. It's probably going to do that walk up again. Ah, not yet. Here we go. Right here. All right. Thanks, Kirby. That was great. That was a great suggestion. They're all great. Anything you suggest will be useful, folks. But that one just happened to really give me the opportunity to demonstrate some straight incremental diatonic harmonization in action. Those of you who are just kind of jumping in or are just kind of sitting there thinking this is way too confusing, I only understand 1 out of every 10 words that Ryan is saying, just know that it does get easier. Just stick around, keep joining in the conversation, keep trying to process this information. I've been trying to remind you all a lot of this recently inside the members area sessions, that there's a lot of value in just kind of sitting with this information, even if it's mostly gibberish to you, because each time you do, it's just full immersion. Think of it as a language that you're learning. So the more you're around and caught up in these dialogues, you might be completely lost half the time, but you'll catch a word here and there. You'll catch a concept. You'll catch a phrase. You'll manage to understand some stuff here and there, and maybe even turn around and communicate in little tidbits, and eventually it'll start coming together. You'll be able to at least fluently understand and listen, and as you kind of get incrementally more adept at the language of music, then you, at the very least, you'll be able to understand what exactly your question is and what exactly it is that you're not understanding, and you'll be able to search that out on the internet or ask me or whomever. All right, I'm going to pull Miss Kell up in here. It's been too long. And we're going to wrap up before too long, but I want to see if anybody else had anything else to say or any other songs they would like me to mutilate like I just did old Tom Pacheco.
Well, we're getting some check-ins both on In Play Better Banjo YouTube. So thanks for checking in and enjoying it. People enjoyed that segment there, Ryan. So
cool.
Glad to hear it. Glad it's being helpful. We did get one other song suggestion, which is Mr. Bojangles.
Mr. Bojangles.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and I can already hear it in my head, similar thing. So that might have even been a conscious or unconscious association with this little diatonic incremental chord progression, because Mr. Bojangles, I haven't played that song in many, 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 many years, but, remembering the progression in my head, it's got that similar kind of movement, probably through the diatonic harmony. So let's check it out. Thanks, folks.
Yeah.
And whoever suggested that, thanks for doing so. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into with Mr. Bojangles. So what I'll do here is I'm just gonna look up the chords like we were doing in the first place. Now I should probably go to the source and say Jerry Jeff, because there's going to be a lot of versions out here. And so I know you can't see the screen right now, but soon enough. There's the solo finger picking arrangement. That's probably going to be a little more convoluted than we need it to be. So I'm going to check that one out. Okay. Oh yeah, this brings up a good point, actually. This type of song. So what I'm going to do, even though I've already warned you against such foolishness, I'm going to pull up the first result in the search, which was an Ultimate Guitar user submitted interpretation of the chord progression for Mr. Bojangles. So I wonder if I can do this. Ah, there we go. That's nice. All right. Life's better without ads. There we go. Let's look up here at chord number 1 is a C chord. Actually, let's do something else first. Chord number 1 is indeed a C chord, but let's look at the end of the verse ends on a G chord. The end of the chorus ends on a C chord. Let's see. Looks like the end of the song down here, at least according to this chord sheet, ends on a C chord. So I would guess, if I didn't have any other information to go by, I would guess that this is in the key of C. Now, I personally can also just kind of glance at this and know we're in the key of C. I don't believe any such explicit information is given here. No, it was not. But you can look at the chords once you're experienced with identifying chords numerically, and like we're doing here, you can see, oh, we got C, A minor, F, G. There's some outliers like an E7, but otherwise A minors, D7s, G. Look, I can see this and go, okay, that's a 1 chord. This is also a version of the 1 chord. Here's your 6 chord. Here is a 1 chord. Here's the 4 chord. Here's the 6 chord. Here's a 2 chord. This is a 3 chord. So we get a lot of fun in here. This is, y'all have been, I couldn't have developed the curriculum better myself than to walk through the three y'all picked. So Kelly picked Mr. Bojangles, or Mr. Tambourine Man rather, which was a perfect intro because we just had our 1, 4, 5 chords, so that's pretty easy to analyze. But then we had that extra minor, and that gave us a chance to talk about what happens when a minor chord enters your 3 chord domain, and interpret that through the lens of diatonic chord progression, thinking in diatonic harmonies. Then we looked at the hippie song, The Hippie on the Highway, and it had a little more action going. It was also in the key of D, and it was also based on your 1, 4, and 5 chord, but it had a little fun in there where we started kind of walking through a little cycle or through a little incremental path through that diatonic harmony with the 2, 3, 4, 5. And I also mentioned to you on the very first one on the Mr. Tambourine Man that when you see a slash, see a chord, slash, and you see another chord name, that's really the denominator there. That is a note name. So it's chord slash note, and that note is supposed to be featured in the bass. It's way more applicable on guitar than the banjo. We don't have a lot of bass on our banjo, and we don't have a lot of range in our strings. But you can still keep that in mind if you're trying to follow along and follow along these slash chords. So in a practical sense, you can ignore that denominator, you can ignore the note behind the slash if you have to. But if you want to apply it, it just means you got to play that chord and you got to have that note on the bottom. So oftentimes the note on the bottom, so right now I'm looking at this C/B, oftentimes that note is already a pre-existing note of the numerator chord there, right? So the C, and if it was C/G or C/E, then I could look at that, and you could too if you use all the info we've learned together and go, oh, that's just the 5 note of the chord, that's just the 3 note of the chord. They're telling me to make sure that note is down in the bass of my chord voicing. Well, in this case, which is often the case as well, I have a note that's not part of the chord at all. It's just a B note. So that's not part of the C chord. It'd be like a part of a C major 7 chord, but it's not part of the C chord. So when you see that, then it's still the same thing. You want to play a C chord, and you want to play that B note in the bass, preferably as your lowest bass note. That's what it's supposed to be. Not always easy for us on the banjo. So I could look at like a C chord up here. I'm playing a bar chord C on the 5th fret, and I could find if this is a C right here, I could go 1 fret down. And get basically the effect that this chord diagrams, this chord chart's asked me to do. Now, technically, when you see that slash, that note's supposed to be in the bass, so I'd probably want to. So there's a B note right there I could find. Or even better, I could go up here to this C chord. And that's probably the best bet. So sometimes you got to take this information and search around, but that's what chord number 2 is, to just get back to the analysis and less to the actual practical application of this stuff. That's what chord number 2 is. It's just a C with a B in the bass, so I'd probably end up playing it right there. It's just my C chord, but I'm taking the C note, the root note in the bass, and dropping it down 1 fret. Everything else stays the same. My fingers do some rearranging, but the other 3 notes stay the same. I don't remember how the timing is on this one. Do a man Bojangles and a dance for you. And now we're down to A minor 7. And then we go, so there we just have a 1 chord, and then we have a 1 chord with a B in the bass. That's just going to create a walking bass line, okay? And then we have our 6 chord, happens to be the minor 7th version, but that's still a straight diatonic harmony, just so you know. It's still an A minor for our, it's a 6 minor chord. So we have a 1 chord, we have our 1 chord with where we start walking the bass note down to a B. Then we play our 6 chord in its regular diatonic minor fashion. We're going to dress it up with a 7th, but it still functions exactly the same as a regular 6 chord. And I'm sorry I don't have that. I thought I had that up. I was giving you some handy highlighting. 1 chord where we walk the bass down. 6 chord, regular 6 minor chord. We dress it up with a 7th, but it still functions exactly the same. Now we're here. C/G, this is what I was talking about earlier. A G is already a part of a C chord, so you can just find your own way. If you play this bar chord up here, and make sure to play your 4th string note, that would be a G note. So if you just play this bar chord C down here on the 5th fret, that's already a C/G. So, do a man Bojangles and a dance for you. And see what happens if the reason this arrangement is dictating what you do in the bass of each of these chords is then you get that walk down that is so quintessential to this song. So listen to the bass notes. I'm playing them with my thumb, but just listen to what's happening here. Singing Bojangles and a dance. Whoops. Man Bojangles and a dance for you. You can hear that walk happening through the chords. F chord. Worn out shoes. So there we have 4 to a 5. 1 drop to the walk down to the 6 minor to the 1. 4 that old soft 5. So it just does the same thing. And then it goes back to the 4. He jumps so 1, he 3. So this one is all over the place, but that's why it's actually a great example here. Because now we'll kind of wrap it up here because we're about out of time, but I think we'll be able to get to all the pertinent points here. Because now we hit an E7, that's going to be a 3 chord, but it's a dominant 3 chord. So it is not our diatonically harmonized 3 chord in the key of C. That would be an E minor, but it's our dominant 3 chord. That's an E7. It's still just our 3 chord, and it's just an E. It's just a different type of E, which does, I say just, but harmonically for your song, that makes a big difference. But when you're thinking about it, it shouldn't be that confusing. Just say, okay, that's our 3 chord, but this time it's a 7th. And then it's going to your A minor, so you're back to a 6th. You see the A minor to A minor 7th. that doesn't change the functionality of that 6 chord at all there. It's still just your diatonic 6 chord. It's just we started without the 7th flavor, then we added it in. That can also be a little, depending on the scenario, that can be pretty optional. On a song like this, you might want to try to follow an arrangement like this. By the way, I'll say the person here, tabbed by Ellen at lshire@yahoo.com. Looks like Ellen did a great job. I already was disparaging users submitting on Ultimate Guitar. I was just trying to warn you that can be misleading sometimes. So this looks great. And then we go to the D7. So what's that in the key of C? That's our 2 chord. Once again, though, it's not our diatonically harmonized 2 chord. It's just our dominant 2 chord, D7. Either of them are correct. It's just a way, it's a reference point to make sense of this. Because otherwise, this is a big jumble. We see we end up on our G chord. That's our 5 chord. So knowing that our verse is ending on a 5 chord is going to indicate to me that it's going to have a feeling of kind of hanging there. It's kind of really going to really want to move to the chorus, I bet, because we didn't resolve back home to our 1. But knowing all that stuff that I just rambled through at a pretty high pace there, understanding that or working towards an understanding of that is really going to revolutionize your ability to teach yourself and to interpret and analyze not just songs you're hearing, but also just instructions you're finding, any information you're finding in chord books, instruction books online, or even just hearing in musical scenarios with other people. You'll get in the habit of kind of being able to identify these things. But again, it comes down to reference points. So if you understand how diatonic harmonies work and you have a pretty clear idea in your head of what those diatonic chords are in each key, and then if you can reference those even when they're non-diatonic, like our E7 and our D7 in this case are our 2 and our 3 chords, but this time they're dominant chords and they're not minor chords. Big deal. We just need to make sure we understand how it all relates, right? So again, might sound like a bunch of jumbled, confusing stuff, but it's all simple. It's all based on little simple ideas, and a lot of you out there have a lot of those ideas in your head. So if you're confused, go back and watch this later. If you're in the members area, you can go back and watch this and make sense of it. You can slow the video down, rewind it, and all that. That shows you how old I am. I think you can rewind digital videos. It's a virtual rewinding, folks. Be kind. Rewind.
Indeed.
So,
Awesome. Yeah.
Kelly, you probably got to jump off of here. We both have some other pressing business to get to, but this has been pretty fun. I enjoyed this, so we're probably going to open it up. For the next few weeks, we'll probably intermittently open up some of these sessions to the broader world, and I won't necessarily give you a warning out there on YouTube, but they'll be popping up here and there. So keep an eye out and feel free to jump in and participate. Thank you all for joining us, and I'm going to sign off and say ciao to y'all. Kel, any final